new video and another day of Bookmas. So today we're going to be going through all the books that I read throughout November. So I have 7 books, but one of them is a DNF, so I won't obviously count that one. So we read 6 books throughout November. It's been kind of a busy month and I have been really ill for a couple of weeks, so I was trying to pick up books and just my brain was not computing the words. It just wasn't working for me, so it has been a bit of a slower month compared to other ones, but still a good reading month overall, and crossed off some books that have been on my radar for a while, which is really good. So we're just going to dive straight in. I'm going to go through all the ratings, my thoughts on them and that kind of thing. To kickstart the month, I started off with Yellowface, which is a literary fiction. It follows the kind of behind the scenes of the publishing industry and how a book goes from a manuscript through to being in the shop, especially with being like a bestseller and that sort of thing. I ended up giving this one 4 stars overall. So we follow our main character June, who is an author, but she's not had the best of luck in her career so far. Her friend Athena, on the other hand, is a best-selling author, and she's kind of always been jealous of her since they've known each other since college. One night they have catch-up drinks at Athena's apartment, and Athena shows June her new manuscript that she's about to publish. Then as part of this catch-up drinks, Athena dies in a really freak accident, and June ends up stealing her manuscript, making a couple of changes and publishing it as her own. We then go through June's story of people kind of suspecting that she has stolen this manuscript and that it's Athena's writing and all that sort of stuff. There's a little bit of a mystery element in here as well, but you've just got to love to hate June, because honestly she makes the worst decisions ever. You literally just can't grasp these horrible decisions that she's making. But it's a really interesting read, and like I say, it's so interesting to see the behind the scenes of the publishing industry and the whole process of getting a book into a bookshop. There's so much that you just wouldn't understand going on, but a really interesting read, and definitely like fueling my love for literary fictions, because there was like no romance elements or anything, and I wasn't missing any of that. It was just so interesting. Then the next book that I read was on my Kindle and was kindly sent to me by the author, and it is The Soulburn Talisman. If you watch my reading vlog for this, I pronounce this word wrong the whole time. Even though I'm a reading girly, I am really dyslexic, so I literally cannot read certain words, and I was pronouncing it Talesman because I'd switched some of the letters around in my mind. It's actually Talisman, so thank you to whoever commented on my video to tell me that that's how you say that word, because I literally didn't know. So Talisman, Soulburn Talisman. It's kind of more an adventure fantasy. It's a YA fantasy. It follows a group of high school students that end up in a fantasy world. So they go on a school trip and basically they end up going through this portal after something happened, and they end up in this fantasy world and they're trying to get back. So I rated this one 3 stars overall, just solid 3 stars. Although I found it really interesting, I feel like it feels like the first book in a fantasy series, but I had a quick look and it doesn't seem that there's any more books published or planning to be published at the moment, so I don't know whether there's going to be more. I always rate the first book of a fantasy series like a little bit lower than the rest, because I feel like the world building takes a lot of time, which I think this one did. Like, there was so many factions within the world that although it was a YA fantasy and each faction was very easy to understand, there was just a lot going on, so the whole concept building took a long time, which it normally does anyway. So I think if there's probably going to be more in this series, then those will probably be rated higher. Like I say, they kind of go on a quest to get back home, and there's some action and mystery and all that kind of stuff along the way that you would expect from a fantasy, but really interesting and was a nice palette cleanser at the start of the month. Then I read a book that has been so highly anticipated and has been on my TBR for so long, and that book is Caraval by Stephanie Garber, which is the first book in the Caraval trilogy. We follow 2 sisters, Scarlett and Donatella, who are both entered into this year's game of Caraval. So Caraval is an annual game that happens on a remote island and is run by Legend. Each year the contestants have like a task or a quest or something to go and find something to win an extravagant prize at the end of Caraval. But there are decisions to be made throughout the game. Not everything is as it seems. This year Scarlett and Donatella have both entered Caraval. However, when Scarlett gets to the remote island, she realises that Donatella has been kidnapped, and Donatella is the person / thing that all contestants have to find to win this year's game of Caraval. I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it, more than I thought I would, because most people rave about the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, but not as much the Caraval series. But honestly, if you're worried that this hasn't been talked about that much, I think Once Upon a Broken Heart must be so good and just overshadows Caraval, but this was really good, really enjoyed it. We then obviously follow along with Scarlett throughout the game of Caraval and what she's doing, trying to get Donatella back, and like I say, not everything as it seems. So towards the end there's lots of plot twists and stuff coming out because we're just in Scarlett's point of view, so we're seeing everything as she's seeing it, but not everything is as it seems. So very interesting read. The next book I read was another literary fiction, and that is This Is How You Lose the Time War, which has been raved about quite a little bit. Well, not necessarily raved, it's just been talked about quite a lot recently, and I saw this when I went book shopping the other week and picked it up. It's only a short read, but I just was really intrigued by it. So we follow Red and Blue, who are rival agents on either side of a time war. If you've watched The Umbrella Academy, it gave off the same vibes as when they're messing with the time continuum, that sort of thing. So if you liked that element of The Umbrella Academy, which I did, I found that bit really interesting in this book. It is quite a confusing book, however, because we don't use names for people, so we just use Red and Blue. Things aren't really described that much, so you don't really understand why they're fighting this time war, what happened, where it came from, what the end goal is. You don't understand any of that, so you're just kind of following them along. But they strike up a communication and leave each other notes in like really quirky places. They have to ingest certain things to be able to read the letters and stuff. It's really interesting, that aspect of it, but it lacked a bit of description. I ended up giving this one 3.5 overall because, like I say, I enjoyed the whole time travel-y aspect of it, much like the aspect of The Umbrella Academy, but I just needed more description. My brain was just not computing what was going on or why they were fighting this time war. Like in The Umbrella Academy, you know why they're messing with the time continuum, but you don't know in this book, so it doesn't make much sense in that aspect, but still very interesting, and I still would recommend reading it if you've got it on your radar. And it is only a short book, so it doesn't take much time to read. The next book that I read was my book club's book of the month, and that was Phantasma, which is kind of like an adult version of Caraval, so it was a bit of a trip to read them both in the same month because I was like, I've just read this book but in a different concept. This one I ended up giving 4.5 stars, which I rated the same as Caraval. I enjoyed them both the same. I don't feel like Caraval was lacking the adult parts, and I don't feel like the adult parts necessarily added to this story. They were both on par with each other. Again, in this one we follow two sisters, Ophelia and Genevieve. They're both, or their family, are necromancers. They're almost like magical elements, kind of witchy style, but not. They're not witches, they're necromancers, but it's that kind of same aspect. After their mum passes away, Ophelia discovers that Genevieve, her sister, has entered herself into Phantasma, which is essentially like Caraval but worse. So Phantasma is set in the Devil's House, so it just pops up in each town. I think it happens more frequently than Caraval did, so that's only annual, whereas I think this is like every couple of months. The Devil's House pops up, it's based in New Orleans, or New Orleans, however you want to say it, and Genevieve enters, and the only way that Ophelia can get her sister back is also by entering into Phantasma. So in Phantasma you have to complete 9 trials, and each trial reflects one of the 9 levels of hell. So they have like greed and that sort of thing, and each trial reflects that, so they have to overcome certain things to complete the trial. I think whoever wins also gets a prize. I don't know if it's a wish or something like that, I'm not sure. I can't remember what the prize is now, but yeah, it's definitely more adult version, so definitely not YA whatsoever. And this is going to be part of a duology, so I'm really intrigued to read the next one because there are some family secrets that are uncovered in this, but not all of them, so not all the answers are given in this book, so I really want to read the next one to understand some of their family secrets and that sort of thing. I literally finished Phantasma as I got super ill, and then I tried to read Six of Crows, which, as you can see, I didn't get very far. I got like 50 pages in, so I have soft DNF this for now because I couldn't understand a single thing. The words weren't going in, it sounded like gibberish. However, when I was on Book Talk, a lot of people have said that too, but I think that because I was also ill, it just was not computing in my brain, and I just think it was the wrong time to be reading it. So I will go back at some point because so many people have raved about it, but now's not the time to go back to that one. Then the last book that I read in the month of November was If the Crown Fits, which was very kindly sent to me by, I think it's Joff or Joffy Books, I don't know how you pronounce it, but I'll put the name on the screen. They also sent me a cute little bookmark that says You Had Me at Romantasy, and they also sent me a necklace which is featured in this book. I ended up giving this one 3.75 stars, which it's the first one in a Romantasy series or trilogy. The books are due to be published in 2025, so again, I think because of the whole world building, understand everything that's going on, I just don't rate the first book in a fantasy series as high as the other ones, just because it takes so much time to build everything. But in this book we're following Lara, who's a renowned thief, and she has been tasked to steal a necklace from the royal family. Only then, once she steals the necklace, does she discover that it's part of a bigger ruse where she needs to pretend to be the princess and essentially fate date the prince from the rival kingdom, Prince Kai, to steal one of his family heirlooms. So it's a really interesting story. I really enjoyed the fate dating between her and Prince Kai and just their characters and their banter in general. That was really good, and I am excited. I know we'll be continuing the series to see what happens and what goes on. There are some family secrets again uncovered and just everything you would expect from a fantasy, so very interesting. Highly recommend reading it. But those are all the books that I read throughout the month of November, so let me know whether you've read any of them or what you read throughout the month, and I'll see you tomorrow for another day of Bookmas. Bye!